so when I first bought this car, it had a problem with the brakes, and the bloke told me it had a problem with the brakes, and he said he was going to have a look at it, and I said, don't bother, we'll do that, because I like to look at it anyway. So anyway, so we turned the cylinders round, and we'd done everything, and we need to bleed the brakes. Well, right from the word go, I thought there was something wrong with the master cylinder, but we'll bleed the brakes. Anyway, we tried to bleed the brakes, and they wouldn't bleed nicely, and the pedal wasn't coming back nicely. So I thought, there's got to be something wrong. So anyway, so we took the master cylinder off. Right, so we'd taken the master cylinder off the car and taken it to pieces. Luckily, being an old son, I'm quite familiar with these horrible old master cylinders. So we took it to bits, and this has a little valve inside made of rubber. So I said, oh, there's the problem. They've left the little valve out. So off I go in the junk and find one. Put it in, think, oh, that's going to cure it. But luckily, in the meantime, I look down inside there and I find the original one jammed in the bottom. It's all deformed. So how that managed to get out of there and finish up in the bottom of there, I don't know. But anyway, it did. So I think that's probably the problem with the master cylinder. So what happens is that goes there, that goes in the bottom of the master cylinder, then you have that, which goes there, you have this little brass washer, which goes there, and that whole lot goes in the cylinder. You have that, which stops that coming back, and then you have the circlip, like that. And that is correct. Now, how that has managed to jump out of there, because I just had a problem getting it in there, so I don't know. But that was jamming a hole at the bottom of there, and of course, when you press the pedal down to bleed it, it wouldn't come back. And I'm saying to John, I can't make it come back. I can jiggle it and make it come back, but it doesn't come back. I think we should take the master cylinder off. So that's exactly what we've done. But in the meantime, I went round to the junk to get another master cylinder to make sure that what I'm doing is absolutely dead right. And I found a brand spanking new one, which I think we bought for the Alvis before I converted it to dual system. You can buy a master cylinder that looks like that, but it's a dual system master cylinder. They make them for XK120s and things, and I fitted it on my Alvis because I thought, well, you know, if one brake pipe was to break, you've got no brakes, and you've only got one master cylinder. So that's what I did. So I obviously took the new cylinder off and put it in, and we just looked at it, and it's exactly the same. So I said, well, while we're messing about, why don't we just put a brand new cylinder on? So that's what we've done. But another little angle to all this is, the Ferrari has one cylinder just like this. So when you're travelling along at 150 miles an hour, which is how fast it's supposed to go, I must say, I've never had it doing much more than 125. It's got one brake system. So I've read in various Ferrari magazines and that, or bulletins, that, you know, people have said, has anybody managed to convert them to have twin cylinders? So I think if we take the Ferrari to bits, which we're going to do, because I'm fed up with the fact that overdrive don't work instantly, I think we might convert it to twin system, and then, you know, I think it'd be quite interesting. I think a lot of people would be interested because, you know, having a Ferrari and it's going like a loony and it's only got one brake system, I don't think it's a very good idea. So anyway, that's another little side to this. But anyway, in the meantime, John's putting the brand new one on, the little washer, then that, and then that. So this will now go in the junk. That'll go in the bin. Missed it. And we'll see how we get on. But the poor bloke who owned it, he was a lovely bloke. I mean, he wasn't I don't think he was any super mechanic. So I think he's been struggling with the brakes for a long time. And you never know, that might be why he sold it. You may remember I've got this young chap Alex staying here for a little while and giving him a little bit of workshop, and he's been working on cars. But I said to him right at the beginning when he arrived, I said, I don't think you want to get involved in total restorations because it's a load of hard work and it's ages till you get the job done and you're bored with it by the time you get it done. I said, I reckon you'd be much better off to set up in business to say, if you've got the car that's been completely restored and it doesn't drive lovely, bring it to us and we'll sort out all the problems. You know, from the seat mounting to the... Because when people restore a car completely, it's another load of work to make it work. And this car is the prime example. It's a fabulous job. The trim, the paint. Parnelli Jones, he obviously put himself out because everything we've touched is fabulous. Even the bolts that hold this on, which are original BSF bolts, have been nickel plated to make sure they don't go rusty. So that's the extent. The cylinders, which were round the wrong way, when we really looked at them, they've been sleeved with stainless steel, which is another good thing. So all of that lovely work, and the master cylinder was giving trouble probably from way go. The brakes have never felt right because one side they weren't leading shoe and the other side was right. So there's so many things. Obviously, we're now going to put the new master cylinder on, we'll get the brakes working, but I am convinced that if I'm going to keep this car and fall in love with it, we're going to take it to bits completely. I can see the engine coming out, chewing all the oil leaks and really having a go at it. People fit 5-speed gearboxes in them, which might be a good idea, really, because I bet it's too low geared on the motorway. But that's another story. I don't know. I don't like to spoil the originality of a car like that, but we'll see. You never know. I might think, well, can't stand that revving at 40 miles an hour. You know, let's have a 5-speed gearbox. But anyway, we're now on the brakes. So I thought that was worth doing a little bit of a video just to show you can get the car that's all been done and it only has to fall down on one little tiny bit of rubber that's not in the proper hole, and the bloody car's got the kiss of death for the rest of its life. So anyway, back to the grindstone. This will now go in the junk. This is the junk. That was from the back of the Skelly car, which didn't stop at all. So we altered that completely and put a proper system in it, like that. But, you know, when you've got a box like this, of all this stuff, it's so useful. So obviously when that little rubber was missing, I looked in there and found a rubber immediately. So that's a lifetime's worth of stuff in there. Look, that looks like the same as the ones that are on the car. So if they hadn't been in good condition, we'd have had something to replace them. But anyway, and this tower here, years ago, we used to have a rag and bone man called Dover. I don't know what his real name was, but he was a lovely old country boy, because when I first came here, talking like I talk, come from London, Dover, I got to know him, and I used to get him to call in and see me because he used to go around clearing out factories and all sorts of stuff. And I used to buy stuff from Dover, what I probably didn't even want, because I wanted Dover to come and see me first. Our pot rivet gun, which works by air, came from Dover. Anyway, one day he arrived with all these trays, and I thought, God, they look good. So I bought them off him for shillings. And then we made this thing out of angle iron and a MIG welder, but they're so useful for keeping loads of old junk in, really. And then this side, we use it for nuts and bolts. And then I was looking on eBay, and they had these little trays, which I think were for baking bread. And there was millions of them on there. Anyway, I bought a load of trays from the bloke on eBay, sent me in a big cardboard box. And so that's where we keep all our nuts and bolts. So we've got nuts and bolts, washers, bolts, junk. That is stuff off of the Albises and everything I've ever worked on has got the odd bolts thrown in there. So that's very often very useful. That is, again, millions of nuts, all different threads. We very rarely need that, but now and again, you know. Springs. All the springs. So if I have a spring, I'll take the bits and there's a spring, I'll throw it in there. And that is so useful. Every now and again you need a return spring or you need something. So that's springs. Jubilee clips. Very rarely do I buy a new Jubilee clip, because every time I take an old car bits or whatever, this is going back forever, I'll throw it in there. And then when I was involved in Bugattis, I inherited this stuff here from my dad. So if you come round there, Tanya, these trays here, when I went into the checkered flag, not the checkered flag, what was it called? Coys of Kensington. And they said to me, do you know anything about Bugattis? And I said, oh yeah, I know I've got a load of stuff. To be honest, I didn't know that much about Bugattis, I do now. But all this stuff was left over from my dad. So I had boxes of screws and, you know, because Bugatti nuts are not easy to come by. So when you've got boxes like that, bloody useful. So when Tim took over the business, I didn't actually give him this. I would have given it to him, but it's a little bit sentimental with my dad and everything, and me getting involved with Bugattis. So I've kept it, but I suppose Tim will finish up with it in the end. But anyway, that's a load of original Bugatti bits in there. Nuts. All sorts of stuff. I'm sure if I put it on eBay, it'd make a fortune. Right. So we put the new master cylinder on, the brakes bled instantly, no problem at all, up and down a few times, and they feel marvellous, so that's done. So then I remembered the bloke, again, I only drove this from his house to the trailer. He said, no, the carburetor's not perfect, they need a little bit of tuning. So anyway, as we're waiting for the stuff for making the rocker cover gasket, I thought, well, I'll just have a quick look at the carbs. Well, the first thing you have to do when you're looking at SU carburetors is to take the inlet manifold off. Air cleaner manifold. Again, absolutely beautiful, all the proper bolts, and it's even got that little bit that steadies it. I'll bet you that's always lost. But anyway, it had all of that, so the screws did fight to the last thread, but anyway, we got it off. So then, the first thing you do, now I remember the bloke said that he'd put a new kit in the carburetors, which means a jet and a needle and what have you. So we can't blame the Americans for this one. Mind you, I've got a friend who blames the Americans for everything, but anyway, that's not really there. So the first thing you do is that. Now that should drop when you take the damper out. You should lift that up, and you should hear it go ding as it drops. Well, that's not bad. But this one, look, is stuck. Look, completely stuck. Now, when you adjust that, you have to have a really nice spanner, and it has to be a really nice fit. And what you do, you jiggle it until you get it right. Well, of course, you can't get a spanner on that one, so there's a good chance that the bloke never got it right. So what I've done is I've took the bolt out of there, got that out of the way, and now I can get the spanner on it. Except, it's the wrong size. Now that obviously would have been the Whitworth size. Well, we haven't got Whitworth spanners going up that big. So the nearest one to it is a 21. So what you do, you loosen that like that. See, look, that's what it sounds like. But now when I tighten it up, that probably won't do that. So what you have to do, you have to keep jiggling it. And tighten it. Oh, listen to that. Now that was easy. It ain't normally that easy. Listen to that. That's what that should sound like. So obviously when you go up the road and you accelerate, that goes up like that. slowly richens the engine. Well, if it ain't moving, it ain't working, is it? But that snap, you hear it snap. Now you listen to that one. It ain't snapping, is it? It's coming down. Sounds all right, but it ain't snapping. So we'll loosen that off. And we'll jiggle it a bit. That's snapping now. Perfect. So that's how they should be. And then next thing you do, you take them off, take the dampers out, stand them upside down, you put your finger on the little hole that's in the back there, and they drop. They go donk. And really, they want to drop more or less the same. I've already done it, unfortunately, but they're good. Because sometimes you get one of them that someone's cleaned out with emery cloth, and you hold it upside down, it falls off like that, and the other one goes, you know, that ain't no good. As long as they're pretty close, they're all right. And to be honest, they were beautiful. So that's it now. Now you can't do anything to tuning them until you've got the engine running, got it warm, and then you do the lark of you lift that up just a little bit and the engine speeds up and then goes back to original. So, and then the other thing I always do, and Willie Griffiths taught me this, very, very famous mechanic, you put that one right up completely and the engine should just about struggle to tick over. And then you let that down and you lift that one up, and if it struggles to tick over but doesn't tick over, then there's got to be a difference between the two. And then it's up to you to richen it or weaken it or whatever. But it's a really good thing. Hold it up, stall. Hold that up, boom, 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 and there's a difference. So that was old Willie Griffiths told me that, and you know, I've used it all my life since. So there we are. So another little episode in getting this old TD to run somewhere near the mark. So the next step will be to take the float bowls off, hold them upside down and see where the little thing that does the float level. I can't remember the measurement, it's 9/16 or something, but I've obviously got it written down somewhere. So I should check that. And not only will I check it, but when I've done it, I'll look inside the thing and see where the fuel is on the jet. It should be just below the top of the jet so you can see it not flooding. So that I'll do that next. But I haven't got that far yet. Right, so I've took the tops off to check the float level, and I've come across this new valve. Now, I've never seen one of these before, because this looks like a mod or a latest edition, and it looks ever so good, because they're always a nuisance. So when the bloke rebuilt the Carbs, he obviously bought new ones of these, and it's the latest type. It's got like a little ball bearing in the top. And the old ones, when you go like that, the thing falls out and it's got a point on it and what have you. I wouldn't mind betting that's probably even got a different kind of point, you know, like with a little seal or something. But anyway, I mean, they look ever so good to me. So the next thing to do was to hold them up and see whether that is in the same place. And they are. So I don't think I'd alter that. But looking in the book, the SU Carburetor book, which I bought, and needless to say, the shed leaks and the bloody thing's got all wet, but you can still read it, so that's good. And looking in there, it said it's got to be 3/8. So anyway, I've got a 3/8 drill and put it like that, and it looks sort of perfect to me. And the fact it didn't flood anyway, I think we'll leave that. I think that's a good job. Now, the next thing to do, really, is to always check the needle, because you never know. It could be any old needle, it could be a dining needle, but anyway. But luckily, in the book, it's got MGTD, 4-cylinder, blah, 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 needle is an ES. Well, I can just about see that, but luckily, when we cleared out old my old mate Bob Mitchell, who I miss very much, he had one of these. So always I see these at a model engineering exhibition and I always think, oh, I've got to buy one of them really. And then I look to see how much they are and I think, oh, I can't afford that. So anyway, this is thanks to Bob. But anyway, you hold that there and you can see it beautifully. And it is an ES. So that's the dead right needle. Now when you fit the needle, you put it in there and you get your rule like that and you go like that. And that is the dead right place for the needle. Just have a check. No, that looks spot on to me. That's it. So now obviously I'll reassemble that. We know it goes chonk, but I'll check it. And then I'll refit them. And then I think what I'm going to do next, I'm going to take the spark plugs out and do a compression test. Because we don't really know what the compression's like, and we're messing about a little bit because we want to sort out this gasket. I've got a little tweak I'm going to do with that, and I'll show you that when it arrives. But so that's that done, really. So the next thing is to reassemble the carburetors. I always put in the damper in there. You can put all sorts of stuff in there. But I always put 3-in-1. And I think there's a funny story attached to this, because the man who had an oil company, I don't know what the oil company was, but anyway, he bought 3-in-1. And somebody said to him, how are you getting on with 3-in-1? And he said, well, he said, I think people must leave it in their will. Because he said, we don't sell that much. And I think I've had that for donkey's years, but it works like a charm. And I can remember my Aunt Laura, who was a really old lady, you know, I mean, she would be like over 100 now. And I can remember being with her one time and a door was squeaking and she said, oh, that wants some 3-in-1. So they must have been doing that for donkey's years. I've no doubt one of our followers will know exactly, but anyway, good old 3-in-1, I use it a lot. What with that and Tiger Seal, one of our followers in America said he can't buy Tiger Seal in America. So he said, what was the equivalent Loctite? Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know all the Loctite numbers. So I'm sure someone out there knows. So tell us what it should be. Because then I can tell the man in America it's Loctite 687 or whatever it might be. You remember earlier I said how you check to see whether these are, you know, in other words, whether that is in good condition in there. What you do, there's a little hole there, look. So you put it down like that, and you put your finger over the hole and you let it drop. I think, you know what my memory's like, but I think it's 8 seconds or something, but I'm not too worried about that. The main thing is to get them side by side and see whether they drop the same, and they do. And that's all in lovely condition in there, so, you know, it was probably going to be all right anyway, but I thought, well, it's worth a try. So that's that. Right, so we've taken the rocker box cover off, and it was held on, or used, this gasket. So it wasn't very successful, because you can see, it looks like it's moved. It was a horrible old gasket anyway, but when we took it off, underneath here, round the edges, was loads of gasket goo. John cleared it out and was going to make a film of it, but he did it before I got there. All lumps of rubber and goodness knows what all around there. So anyway, we cleared all that out. So then we looked at it and thought, well, how are we going to make a better job of it? So I looked on the vintage suppliers, and they supply all sorts of bits of rubber like this to go around the edge of things. And as it happens, that size in there is 3/16 of an inch. And the width of this was 3/16 of an inch. So I decided that would be a lot better job for the cost of a bit of this. And then obviously what we're going to do, we're going to super glue that together. Well, I mean, if it leaks, it's only going to be leaking out of there, whereas this thing, it looked like it was leaking all the way round. So anyway, so that's that. So that's what we're going to do there. So then, we decided to adjust the valve clearance. So we got it to top dead centre, started to go down the things, and the nuts were so tight, ridiculous. Anyway, I'm loosening off the nuts, and I got to one nut, and it came undone. I thought, oh, that's loose. It wasn't loose, it came off in my hand. So where are they, John?
They're over on...
So in the end, we decided to take them all off, and we actually found that a couple of them were stretched because we couldn't screw them out because they were stretched. So that's the broken one. So obviously what happened was the nut goes on there, and you tighten that up to lock it, and it was obviously so tight that it's actually pulled the top of the thing off. That one there wasn't broken, but it was obviously stretched because we couldn't get it out, so we had to cut it off in the end to get it out. But anyway, we got it out. So we just ordered 4 new ones because we reckon 4 would probably do the job. So that will be the valve clearance done, and hopefully this will be not leaking. But it's amazing how you can get a car totally restored and absolutely beautiful, and it lets itself down because the brakes don't work, the doors don't shut. So that's another little job. We've just altered all this in here because that didn't work. And now the door's shut properly. So that's a good thing. It's amazing when you see all this fabulous work and everything we've touched so far. The carburetors have needed attention, the brakes have needed attention, the doors didn't shut properly, the cylinder cover or cam box cover was leaking, and the valve clearances we couldn't do because one of the nuts broke off. So that's as far as we got now. So that's another little bit for Tanya to make a film of. Don't forget to subscribe, because I've actually got my plastic teeth and I'm having to get used to it, but we'll see how I get on. They're not completely done yet.